Ours are the one we,
No, I mean, no, what, actually, what time, what's my Friday?
That's
Which is a plus for big guys. Last early.
All right, everybody, welcome in. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is the Innovative Intersections, Displaced Left Turns presentation. So this presentation is pretty lengthy. So if you have any questions, we can hold them till the end so that we can make sure we get all the way through. If there's any questions for the online people, feel free to put them in the chat. And with that, we'll turn it over. I think Mike's going to start off.
I'm Mike Bezold, branch manager for product development up in District 6. And we have quite a bit of traffic problems up in District 6. You can't imagine that. Well, at the intersection of Kentucky 17, you see it's a flop diamond interchange. And we had some problems on 17 trying to identify what to do. So we got a project. We just scoped it out as a project to mostly we're going to add left turns and just the typical widen, add left turns, figure out if we can do something to improve the intersection. The intersection, the purpose of the project is to reduce congestion, improve the I-275 ramps. That the ramps, the congestion on Kentucky 17 is so great that it backs traffic up on I-275 main line, which then backs all the way up to the next interchange every evening. So there was a lot of congestion at this intersection. You can see there's existing is over 36,000 cars a day, and the design ADT is 47,000 cars a day. It was just, there's issues at the intersection and we needed to do something. We figured, okay, we'll add some turn lanes. We have a high critical rate factor. There's injury accidents. There was even a fatality down there a couple of years ago. It's like that. We have issues at the intersection. We got a project that we figured was going to be simple, add some turn lanes, maybe do whatever we could. Then we got AE partners involved and selected Eric to come up with some solutions for us. And now I'll turn it over to Eric on some of the things he came up with for us.
Good morning. My name is Eric Hackworth with EA Partners. And
What's AE?
we do have AECom as our traffic sub for this project. I'm going to back up to actually the cover photo here because it gives us the best photo to talk from. And I'll just kind of give you an overview of what we were looking at here. The left side of the picture is south, the right side is north, and the road that you can see intersecting Kentucky 17 to the south side there is Dudley Road. And that road actually connects over toward Turkeyfoot. Between those two major corridors, you have St. E. Hospital and quite a bit of subdivisions and developments. And this gets a lot of local and commuter traffic in this area. And so in the AM particularly, people are trying to get in and out of the Dudley Road intersection. And, you know, it's causing pretty severe backups that are overflowing onto Kentucky 17. It's so bad at times, you know, people get impatient, they pull into the intersection, they block the intersection for Kentucky 17. And it takes a while to dissipate that traffic that builds up in the intersection, and that's leading to crashes. There's a pretty significant amount of rear ends there. Moving on north, you get what we labeled the eastbound ramps of I-275 here. And pretty well the biggest problem at this ramp is the amount of left turn storage that you have here. Round about 200 to 275 feet of storage is all you really have in that turn lane. So people trying to turn left are backing up into the inside through lane of Kentucky 17, which, you know, is further complicating that problem. So jump up to So, as Mike said, the purpose of the project was really to address the congestion on Kentucky 17, specifically at Dudley Road. And as part of the initial look at this project, D6 had put together an alternate DNA study that looked at widening Kentucky 17 toward the east side of the road. It would have been down the screen on that previous picture, enough to get in a wider median. That way they could build out a longer left turn storage bay for the eastbound I-275 ramps. So that was what alternate one was in our initial study. It was the district's option. We kind of built upon that, and for traffic purposes, we added a third through lane at those ramps, the eastbound ramps. I'll back up here again. Maybe. Anyways, right now, there are 3 lanes coming southbound on Kentucky 17, but they actually, at the eastbound ramps, the third lane becomes the right lane, and it drops going on to the interstate ramp. So there's only 2 lanes that actually come through that intersection. So as part of alternate one, we carried that through the third through lane through the eastbound ramps intersection and on past Dudley Road and dropped it south of Dudley Road. Alternate 2, and we'd actually thrown this into our proposal, was a set of arc cuts, one south of Dudley Road and one actually kind of set up as a through turn at the eastbound ramps. That alternate didn't really make it through alignment review. It had some issues associated with encroaching into the stream to the east, and from our initial traffic look, it just wasn't going to work from a traffic perspective. And then that gets us to alternate 3. You know, I sat around several days trying to figure out something else that would work here. And, you know, a DCD would come to mind in a situation where you kind of had a capacity issue at an interchange, but where it's a plot diamond, that just really doesn't work at all. So it became, how do we get left turns separated out similarly to a DCD, but for a plot diamond? So that's where the displaced left came from for alternate 3. And there were additional items that we threw into alternate 3. We brought the third lane through on the south side. We carried a third through lane all the way up to Highland Heights on the northbound side, widening and relocating Dudley Road played into alternate 3. So it kind of became a Cadillac option, if you will, for that particular option. So with that, and I apologize if you can't really see this, but this was the extensive alternate 1. We did a little widening on Dudley to get a right turn and dual lefts in on that. You can see the third southbound through lane comes through the interchange ramps through Dudley and then tapers out south of Dudley. This road is actually widened to the stream side enough so that we could get a turn lane in here that had around 350 feet of storage, and you know, definitely an improvement on what we had before. So I don't have a rendering of alternate 2. Like I said, it got killed a little early on before we got this far. So this is alternate 3, and as I said, it was kind of a Cadillac option. As we get a little farther into the presentation and talk about cost, you'll kind of see how that worked out. But realigned, there's an existing road that dead ends right here. So we realigned Dudley along that road and then tied back in farther south. That was important to give us the spacing that we needed on the displaced left here, because in addition to the displaced left, we also brought a right turn slip lane off of the interstate as well. The third through lane carried through, and in this case, it actually drops as a right turn lane into New Dudley. One of the things that we added in, and maybe you say it complicates things a little bit, but it actually adds quite a bit of mobility, is we put a small U-turn in the middle of the displaced left here. Now, it's only capable of turning passenger vehicles, trucks, small trucks. You're not going to get any kind of semis or anything turning in that. But that movement is fully protected based on the signal phasing that we put into it. It provides an extra little bit of mobility in the area. And then it was pretty much just a copy of the southern displaced left to the north here at the other what we'll call the westbound ramps. Same setup, the U-turn is there. One thing that we did with this option that isn't current is we actually carried this third through lane all the way up here. This is actually Orphanage Road right here. So we carried that through and kind of dropped it as a left turn lane here at Orphanage. So, you know, after we got to discussing these alternates, we knew that this one was going to be out of budget. So we arrived at made some decisions to get us down closer to our budget and to get down closer to our budget. And what that resulted in is getting rid of the northern displaced left entirely. And this intersection stayed the same. We've still got 3 southbound lanes, but what happened here is we dropped the third northbound lane as well. So this is all existing edge of pavement with the exception of this little right turn lane here on the northbound side of the Dudley relocation. We kept it because of spacing issues, and this third lane drops as a right turn lane into the New Dudley. A little bit on the design criteria we used on this project. There's a FHWA circular out there that kind of provides a little basic information on the geometrics of these. And I guess probably it's fairly basic. The other thing that I tended to rely on a little bit more is that Utah put out a design circular on this that kind of provided more information for storage lengths, spacing of the intersection, crossover angle, things like that to work with, radii of the crossover points. So with all that said, probably the most critical thing was how does it work from a traffic perspective? And I don't expect anybody to really be able to read the numbers on this, but what you get is the first column is existing AM and PM. Second column, and there's a little discrepancy here. Our first slide said 2029 design year. After PL&G, we decided to bump that up to 2035 and rerun our numbers again to provide a little bit more cushion for the construction year, which is around 2023, 24 right now. Third column is alternate 1. We did an alternate 1A where we put relocated Dudley in with alternate 1, and then alternate 2 was already thrown out. Alternate 3, and then 3A, which is the preferred. And the thing I really want you to pay attention to most is just the colors on the chart, because if it's a white box, that means it's a level of service C or better. Red F, orange E, yellow D. So as you look from one column to the next, you see a lot more white, yellow, and orange. And there is one box of red, but if you compare it over to what it actually is with the no build and the other alternates, it's a significantly less delay time than what it is with the other options. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vanessa to talk through the traffic and show the simulations.
So my name is Vanessa Neum. I was the lead traffic engineer for this. We were a sub, as Eric mentioned, the PA partners with AECOM, or AE, that might be our combined team effort is AE partners. So I wanted to show some videos. This is the AM no build. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we're starting at the north here at Highland Pike. This is synchro simulation. So it allows you to put in, this has existing timing information that is out there today. Highland Pike is the northern intersection. We really didn't do anything here. And I wish I could cut the video a little bit. So I'll just tell you a little bit more about the lay of the land. If you go up Highland Pike, which would be to the west, that's direct access to I-75. And if you go on north, that's Covington. So we're headed basically towards Ohio. And so there's still a lot of traffic that happens at this intersection with some heavy left turns in the morning, people destined to the interstate at this end of the project. But really, we didn't do much with the timing here. Of course, not in the no-build, we didn't do anything. And then as we move south, Orphanage Road, this is also a major connector. It runs basically kind of parallel, it's Forest Branch, but it runs parallel to Dudley on the south side of the interstate and allows access up to the hospitals, Thomas More. So it's an alternate path without getting on 275. And so there again, in the morning, it's a heavy like north to west movement. And not a lot of timing changes here either, at least in the no-build. We pretty much, I think, kept the same cycle length as what's out there right now. Next, so what you'll see with the ramps, it just gets messy to do curvature, but our ramp distances are the same, the equivalent distance as it would be as if it were to back up onto the interstate. So as you can see, cars are backing up on that ramp all the way back. And you're kind of, well, you're not, sorry, you can't see them backing up yet, but when you start to see them back up and we're going basically off the page, that means that they're backing up onto 275, which is a problem. So the no-build conditions were obviously not ideal. You see that same problem eventually with the Eastbound ramp. And if you look, I'll just give you a peek at Dudley. Dudley's already off the page. So the problem really is there. You start to have traffic back up because they're held up moving to the eastbound ramp. And so now you're backing people up Dudley. And as Eric mentioned, they're blocking the intersections. In this case, the simulation, you can allow it to block, but you don't see the blocking in the simulation. The reality is folks are blocking the intersection and it will continue to be an issue. So, and the other thing that we didn't mention is the Independence to the south here is booming, and there's a lot of traffic coming out of Independence, basically destined for 275, Dudley, everything. So in the morning, this northbound, I mean, it's heavy. It's going to be heavy. You're going to see that back up even in our proposed alternative. But this just gives you a view of what it would be if we didn't really do anything in 2035. And this was alternative 1. Again, we're not going to see really much change at Highland Pike. I think we probably did do some phasing changes here. We ended up optimizing for in and the models of the design alternatives. So we changed some of the phasing, not the phasing, but the cycle lengths, because there were added capacity of the ramps with the additional lane and the turn lane lengthening. So some of these cycle lengths were a little bit different. So you'll see a little bit of variation in the way that Orphanage and Highland operate. But again, you can already see down there as the ramps peeking through that the backups are significant, and you actually see some good backup left turn on the Orphanage as well. So a lot of the value in the Displaced less is also in the phasing time that you get back, because you take that left turn out of that move out of the intersection, and they're already on the left side of the road, and it actually allows us to do more with the phasing and the cycle lanes that we have. So you start to see improvements at other intersections because you're not bound by a longer cycle length in order to accommodate what's going on at the ramps. So as you can see, Westbound would be backing up onto the interstate still in this scenario. And 17 is planned. I mean, that is a problem. It doesn't really go away. There's a lot of traffic coming out of it in the morning, but that northbound movement is just very heavy. And then this ramp looks nice. There wasn't really an issue with that. You can see more telling is Dudley. You don't have people backing up off the edge. They're able to get through. There's still, queuing, but it's not nearly what it was. Because they're clearing, because we have more capacity on 17 approaching the ramp. There's the folks coming off Dudley have somewhere to go. We have dual lefts coming off of Dudley too. So this made an improvement for sure, but it's not as big of an improvement as you will see on the next. All right, so we're starting back at Highland again. I don't know if it's noticeable, but I think this does operate a little bit better because of the cycle changes that I alluded to. Because basically the timing, if you have to have the left turns at the eastbound ramp, you end up having to give a lot more time for that left turn, which really dictates then the cycle lengths for the whole corridor. These are all in a system together. So when we get that out of there, we can shorten the cycle and make it a little bit snappier at the other intersections. Orphanage is doing, I hope, pretty good in this scenario. And we had a question, we had a meeting with FHWA and some other folks, and one of the questions came up, it's visible here that you see an improvement on the westbound ramp as well. And so that was the answer to the question, is really in the phasing, and also the fact that traffic flows better on 17. People are getting out of the way, so it really does improve operation even at the westbound ramp. So you see benefits, even though in our, we'd love to have displaced less at both ramps, but since budgetary constraints, we're trying to be as conservative as we can. And so even without that displaced left at this ramp, you can see some improvements to the operations there as well. You can start to see the eastbound ramp. I mean, there's a heavy flow of traffic coming off the eastbound ramp, but I really like Dudley on this, because the distance too of moving Dudley to the south and giving them additional storage, but also room away from the interchange makes such a difference. So there's still, a lot of traffic coming off the eastbound ramp and making that left turn, but the operation is much nicer. And now you you can't even see Dudley yet, but you're not having the backups all the way up the hill. You kind of see the cars starting to sneak down, and we'll be able to see that intersection. But now there is still a queue northbound. Part of that is just simulation. Those folks are picking the left lane earlier in the simulation. You might actually have more stacking here. They're already getting themselves ready to be in the left lane, but to get on the westbound ramp. But generally, you know, we could see so much improvement in this scenario for the ramps specifically, and also for Dudley. So Dudley still has a queue, but it's not nearly as significant. They have more time to get themselves positioned and get up to the ramps.
And one thing you didn't get to see there, even though it said alternate 3, that was actually the alternate 3A simulation. Alternate 3 would have shown both of the displaced lefts. And yeah, and Vanessa alluded to it. John Moore had brought up the question after we looked at the actual alternate 3 versus the alternate 3A. Is, you know, we've not done anything really north of I-275 at that westbound interchange. So why does it look the same as it does in alternate 3? And, you know, there's a significant amount of efficiency that's gained just from that one displaced left intersection. And moving Dudley down, as Vanessa said, gives you a lot more room to figure out where you're going, get in the lanes. And you know, there's a lot of platooning that kind of gets eliminated there too, because traffic's moving freer through the whole system, so there's less of a queue buildup in that system. So, and this, we get to the point here of cost, and this is really the driving factor in our decisions. And if you look, construction dollar-wise, we had just shy of $4 million in the highway plan for the project. Alternate 3 came in around 6. The preferred came in just at 4. The biggest problem that we ran into with cost on the project was in utilities and right away. Relocated Dudley does require one take up toward the tie-in point. But the biggest kicker, and we were sort of aware of this going in, there's actually a 42-inch water transmission line that goes to the water tower on top of the hill. And it runs right against the edge of the shoulder, pretty much on 217. So, you know, fearing catastrophe and worst case scenario, that thing rupturing under the displaced left, we've elected to move that with that intersection, because once this is set up, there's really no alternate recourse for that movement. You're forced into that displaced left maneuver, and if someone has to excavate to put in a replacement 42-inch water line, then you've lost that movement to the interstate. So, and you know, just the nature of 42-inch water mains, that thing's 8-10 foot deep in the ground at the moment. So it's not really feasible to have that scenario out there. So when it all came down to the preferred, we had about a $7 million project, total budget just over 4. So project team felt that due to a number of reasons that it was really merited that extra $2.5 million. And, you know, one of which was the fact that this project kind of prolongs the usable life of the interchange itself. That the flop diamond interchange, and I don't know if you're aware of the area or how it sets up, but going toward the east, there is, I forget the exact length, but 1,000-foot plus steel bridge built pretty high in the air, and you know, to widen that for additional lanes, for merge areas, for a second lane on the ramp is just millions and millions. I mean, it's a mega $1 million project even to see that. So a couple $1 million spent on this provides pretty significant benefit to the cabinet for what it would cost otherwise to maybe get that same benefit, keep that grant from backing up. You know, we looked at other things potentially to save some money. We thought there was a chance that the water line may not be exactly where we thought it was, but we've since done the sewer work and it looks to be pretty well in a problematic area. So, and then, you know, the last thing is why here? Why do we think it'll work? And, you know, one of the things we went through is that, you know, there's just a lot of innovative intersections in northern Kentucky, Boone, Kenton, Campbell, roundabouts, DCDs. Recently, there was a jug handle intersection built over in Boone County. AECOM actually worked on that one. Spuies, I mean, you know, the residents up there are just seeing new and innovative things. And, you know, the other thing is that the traffic on 17 and at this intersection is mostly commuter traffic. There's no real destination for tourists or somebody that might be coming out of state. So, you know, maybe somebody messes up 1 or 2 times, but, you know, they're going to figure it out eventually, and they're going to drive that every day. And that's going to be the majority of people using that intersection. And one of the things that we kind of found out a little later on is there's actually a displaced left in Ohio about 10, 15 minutes away from where this project would be. And it's been functioning there for a few years now. So with that, if anyone has any questions, thanks for questions.
Yes, go ahead.
With regards to traffic, were you cycling at all by in the displaced left?
Yeah, that was the big get, was the fact that we could, and I don't know exactly, and you know, it's simulation. We luckily, as part of Ted's contract, because we have the traffic engineering contract, we're also going to get to do the timing when this opens. So I can give you more on that, but that's kind of what I'm excited about because we can model it or blue in the face, but you do have to get that timing right, and it will probably result in a lower cycle length, and that's why the other intersections benefit from it.
So synchro, how
Mostly it was intersection delay, which you can kind of see. And so, you know, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with synchro. So you know that it's not perfect. It's not a perfect tool. That's why we use the simulation piece of it too, to look at the reduction and backups and is this really working? And you can still even see some bugs in the model, right? So capacity was one big piece of it. The VC ratios we looked at the level of service and we look, you know, a big thing that I've seen lately too is using how many more cars are you getting through? And that's not as easy to measure in synchro, but I think that this would be an opportunity to do that after the fact and kind of put it in and say, look, we used to get this many cars because all of our counts are that way. You have to bump a count up. Luckily, with this project, we were fortunate enough that we were ahead of COVID. So we've got all of our counts, they're good counts, but we know that that's a capacity count. So we did some, I mean, we used a growth rate that we felt also reflected that. But when you're trying to grow this traffic, you're still not really getting everybody through it. So, but the question was, yeah, level of service, BC, and the delays. No, we didn't actually do travel runs for this, but we will as part of the traffic signal time. So that's a good point. We'll have to get out there before they build it and then go back and do it after the fact.
I'll add a couple of things to that as well. As far as cycle lengths, one of the biggest benefits, and I don't really think we mentioned this with the displaced left, is we go from a 3-phase to a 2-phase. You lose that left turn phase and it becomes a 2-phase signal. The other thing about synchro is obviously we've done that. And in our meeting with Mr. Ballinger, we first presented this to him. I think one of the things that we talked about when we bumped it from a 2029 to 2035 design year, is that we would see how Synchro worked. And then if we still felt good with that, fine. If we thought that the model was showing some congestion and stuff, then we would look at maybe plugging that into BizSim and seeing how it worked in BizSim at this point. But I mean, I think the way things are looking at this point, I don't think we're really.
What was the reason for the U-turn intersection?
One of the biggest reasons, let's see if I can get back to the front page. Yeah. So this is actually right here, one of Gateway Community Colleges. I think it's actually, they do a trucking school there.
Yes, it's a trucking school, yeah.
But one of the reasons was so that they could come out, and this direct left is gone with the displaced left. So that allowed students to come out and make a U-turn and go back southbound in the event that, you know, they were traveling for town. And then, you know, when we did the other displaced left, it was kind of more of a symmetry thing at that point. But, you know, it does provide some maneuverability, and it is a protected movement. So they're not going to have to compete with opposing traffic to make that.
What's their schedule as well? Their peak period is probably not the same as the normal rush hour peak period, so it makes it a little easier.
A
Right.
gateway, you mean?
Yeah.
It's not like a significant
It's not a-
generator.
Okay,
It was just about access. It wasn't really a factor as far as that goes.
I think that the count was like 10.
Yeah, it's
Which
like.
is why it makes sense.
Which is why we didn't accommodate trucks in 90.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't, I see, but, yeah, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't think it was big enough.
There's other routes for 1 or 2 trucks that they can find their way. And I mean, if that was an Amazon facility, obviously that changes the calculus on that. But, you know, project team decided that it really wasn't worth the effort to try that.
Got a couple more minutes, so if there's any other questions. If not, I'll say we can break a little bit early, let everybody go run to the restroom for the next session, last one before lunch. Thanks everybody for being here.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to talk about some specialized. Yeah, that's why.